Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of the Afghanistan podcast. Joining us today, we have a very special guest from Pakistan. We have Air Commodore retired Khalid Chishti joining us. Khalid Chishti has served proudly Pakistan Air Force for 35 years. So naturally, he's a authority on air defense and air combat, and I can think of no one better to guide us through the events that took place a few weeks ago between the clashes between India and Pakistan. So, Commodore Khalid Chishti Saab, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Taifeem, for inviting me to talk on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I was looking forward to it. So, before we get started, would you like to tell us a little bit about your career and your background? How did you join the Air Force and when did you retire?
Thank you. I joined Pakistan Air Force in 1977 as a fighter pilot, went through initial training and then graduated, then went on to do my combat conversions and flew a different aircraft. I have flown F-6 aircraft, which is Chinese origin aircraft, and I've also flown French Mirages, a total of about 3,000 flying hours. I've been in the staff appointments, in management. I've been base commander at Karachi. I have also been a faculty member at Pakistan Naval War College, Pakistan Air Force War College, and the National Defense University, and retired about 2012. And since then, in Lahore, I'm settled in Lahore doing my own business, and I'm also teaching in one odd universities, including LUMS. This is what, and I do make documentaries. It's been about 6 years. Then I started off as a passion. Mostly do my work on the founding father of Pakistan, Quaid-e-Azam, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. I do deliver talks locally, internationally. Just about 3 months back, I was in USA. Plan to go again coming August. And I have also been making documentaries about the Air Force for the last about 5-6 years. There are more than about 100 videos on my channel, which is with my name, Khalid Chishti. And this is all about it. And then obviously this escalation went on. And since then, I am contributing my bit to my understanding according to whatever I know about the Air Force.
Sure. Thank you so much. Yes, I've seen some of your work on the life of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and I was so impressed by it. And maybe we can talk about that at the later half of this episode today. How was it? So, this current, the clashes that were taking place between India and Pakistan, the climax of it, how was it being associated with Pakistan Air Force for such a long time, sitting on the sidelines and watching the events take place? What was the feeling? Because presumably there's a lot of people in the Air Force that you've worked with before.
See, that's an interesting question. Since I joined Pakistan Air Force, obviously we had to be combat ready, and our country, unfortunately, has been no war, no peace status. Why? Because when I was young, it was almost 1980 when I joined a fighter squadron, and there comes United States, there comes Soviet Union invasion into Afghanistan in 1979. And I happened to be posted in Peshawar, which was the frontline base for this escalation, and obviously negating Soviet aircraft to intrude into Pakistan to chase Mujahideen and bomb in our area. So we were obviously most of the time doing patrolling on the western border, almost 21 years of age. Since then, I started to see the combat either from the distance or more closely. And then obviously we went on to protect the nuclear installation that we have in Kahuta, and I did a couple of years spent in Rawalpindi. We were doing the patrolling to defend our nuclear plant at near Islamabad. Apart from that, obviously continued to grow into the Air Force and retired as Air Commodore. But during this, that now the time has proven again that Air Force, because of its natural inherent advantage, it is supposed to be the first to go into the war and probably the last to come out. We had to be ready all the time, combat ready, patrolling. This was a normal way of life. And even today, since our last Abhinandan's case 2019, which we might discuss later, probably one of the most combat ready Air Force in this, probably globally, has been Pakistan Air Force. We could not sit back and say that this is the peacetime. For us, it's almost a half war time all the time.
That's so interesting. Also, what you're saying reminds me of there's an Indian military analyst called Praveen Swami. I think he is from Force magazine. You might have heard of him. And one of the things that he was kind of critical about for the Indian government, that it seems like that they started the offensive with the Air Force. And normally offensives like this start with ground forces, with the army, and then it escalates up to the Air Force level. The fact that we went straight into Air Force, he was saying that it was a strategic mistake because then that leaves no room for further escalation up the ladder. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, I agree with him because the Air Force is the best use. You see, it does five things which has inherent advantage over land forces or naval forces. To my understanding, it has a great initiative. Number one, obviously can be initiated at any time. Number two, it can surprise with the time because the warning is very little. Number three, it has concentration of force. You want to focus here or there. In minutes, you can focus the concentration or shift the focus. Number four, it has a shock effect for the people who receive the bombing or the tonnage on the ground and the people who make policies regarding that. And number five, and the most important thing, is that it creates environment favorable or unfavorable for land forces and the naval forces.
Yes.
You see, when you employ the Air Force, at least you have to have number five factor in mind, that what kind of environment are you trying to accrue out of that offense that you're about to launch. There has to be linked with the ground or the naval forces. You can't employ, to my understanding, you cannot apply the Air Force standalone with not end game or end result in mind. If you do not have, that's called the wrong hypothesis. In military, when I was teaching, or I have been a student myself, we used to obviously learn that hypothesis is giving the best option to the enemy against me. That means what is the worst for me? They miscalculated. The Indian Air Force or Indian policymakers basically, to my understanding, faulted at two places. One, that they did not have the end war gain. What do they want to take home? Number one. And number two, probably they miscalculated the response of Pakistan Armed Forces and particularly Pakistan Air Force. They thought we'll sit by and watch baby and keep flying defensive. And if you watch my video, which I uploaded just about 5 days before this escalation, I said Pakistan Air Force is going to fight offensively. Do not underestimate that this is 1960s or 71 Air Force, which most of the time will go for defensive. This time the Air Force will go offensive. And it proved it right in a couple of days later that they went in offensive and obviously shot down. They did not bother this time, which they did bother in 2019, when they shot down Abhinandan, that the rocket should fall into Pakistan. This time they were not watchful about this, and they never countered this option in that the rocket should fall inside Pakistan because it was a beyond visual range fight.
Yeah. How do you see the events that unpacked? So on the 7th of May, India attacked 9 sites in Pakistan, which was a huge escalation because they didn't confine the attacks in the line of control. They attacked all over Pakistan, but also in civilian areas, mosques and um, densely populated areas. So after that, how do you see from there what happened in the next 2 or 3 days? So on the eighth, when they tried to attack with Air Force and Pakistan countered, can you unpack a little bit what happened there?
As a student of military strategy and air power, I will come back to this point again with a lot of emphasis that there was a miscalculation or under-reading something which was writing on the wall. Why? Because if you noticed, if you read the news carefully, this was about 30th April, 30th May, when 4 Rafale aircraft were made to force land in a panic situation at Srinagar. They had the backup aircraft. The Air Force employed all resources, including the jammers, airborne early warnings, the cyber command, and obviously the frontline aircraft, to made them go through this exercise to land at Srinagar. Pakistan in general and Pakistan Air Force in particular was fighting for war deterrence. They were trying to send a message that there is a price attached, but they did not probably listen to it. There comes 6th and 7th. 6th, they went on to bomb. Obviously, you must have noticed the civilian populations that you mentioned. And on that night, obviously, Pakistan Air Force engaged them through beyond visual range across each other's border, almost 150, 200 kilometers distance. And we are sure about it. We shot down 6+1 aircraft. And Pakistan Air Force, let me tell you, as a student of strategy, was still in war deterrence mode. We wanted to deter the war. We didn't want to pick up the war as a choice. We wanted to attach a price for the Indian Air Force and Indian policymakers that this is what you'll have to pay. But probably they still underestimated. As I said, they did not have the clear kill picture or the take home picture. They went on to take on the bases and started to fire drone in towards Pakistan, violating international border. And when they, on the ninth night, they bombed different air bases. And obviously, I was most of the time on the media, and somebody asked me, what do you foresee now? I thought, now it's going to be a very massive response from the Air Force. It has to. It's an obligatory. And this is exactly what happened after a few days. Till 7th morning, when we were shooting down those aircraft, we were still into war deterrence mode. On 10th morning, I have calculated the data, and I have the tonnage calculated of what PF bombed in 5 hours. That is early morning, 4:30 onwards, till before midday. The kind of tonnage that they threw through different means over India was more than 17 days of 1965 war. Accumulated.
I heard you say that, and that's awesome. I mean, that is a huge response.
But that was not, now it was not a war deterrence mode. It was either war culmination or war escalation option. Either the war will get culminated or will get escalated. Because as a country like Pakistan, which has almost 1/3 of the Air Force, which has 11th time less budget than the Indian Air Force, we cannot afford, this is my own opinion, we cannot afford a prolonged drawn war for weeks and months. It has to be either this way or that way. 10th morning bombing obviously showed our resolve that we will hit back. India wanted to set a new normal by hitting 6th night. That, okay, wherever we find terrorists, according to them, or religious extremism, we'll bomb them. And Pakistan should start to accept this as a normal thing. But Pakistan Air Force retaliated with full might. And on 10th morning, they conveyed the message back that that was not new normal. Probably if you continue the war, this is going to be the new normal. That's what changed the scenario totally.
Yeah. In your opinion, in your analysis, if India misread the situation, and they based their whole strategy on a miscalculation, that Pakistan is not going to strike back so massively, where was the mistake made? Is it that there was maybe not a good communication between Indian politicians and army? Because as I understand it, the military was trying to explain to the political powers that be what they anticipated Pakistani response to be, and they were pretty accurate in that. But the politicians wanted to get political advantage out of it, and they kind of neglected the military feedback that they were getting. Is that right? Is that, in your opinion, what was happening?
If you allow me to refer back to history with the little data, I'll be very quick. So the Americans fought with Vietnam, 1954 to 75, 21 years. The Vietnamese, 3.3 million Vietnamese were lost, 33 lakh. American lives were only 58,000, the loss. The America still had to exit this area. Why? The America in the Cold War days were fighting for regional hegemony, the empowerment, control of the area, trying to prove the win and victory. The Vietnamese were fighting for their survival and cause. So you have to have a just cause or a justified cause to have a justified war. And when you have justified cause for a justified war, your armed forces performance will be justified. I see this link missing on Indian part. They wanted to have a political agenda. They wanted to have political gains. And when you have a flawed justification of the war, then obviously the performance of the armed forces will be flawed. And because it was led by a faulty, the cause or a justification. There it starts off. They miscalculated this. And then unfortunately, the thing escalated, obviously, in this area. Pakistan Air Force, on the other hand, I do not see much on this to write where did they do wrong. Why? Because they've been practicing multi-domain operations. I know that they do practice air combat, 100 plus aircraft. So it was absolutely not a shock to them. Amazing thing what they did was, on the night of 7th morning, they went on to be defensive operation. When they took off, 42 of them in the air, there were 125 aircrafts according to CNN website. When 40 aircraft took off, it was supposed to be a defensive mission to defend against obviously any aggression. But in the middle of it, when they realized the bombs have been fired into Pakistan airspace, they converted brilliantly they converted a defensive mission into offensive mission. Let me tell you, as a fighter pilot, we do not normally absolutely do that, because if you've gone for a defensive mission, it'll be a defensive mission. If you've gone for an offensive mission, it'll be offensive mission. This is what I've been taught. But now the PF had transformed into that. And that is what I just submitted to you earlier, that I had said that they will go offensive, do not underestimate them. And they went on to be offensive, obviously.
How has that happened? It's clear that both India and Pakistan see each other as enemies, as rivals, as a country that cannot be trusted, and we're completely watching each other every move, what weapons are being purchased, what exercises are happening. How was India taken by surprise with Pakistan's Air Force capability?
You see, you have to prepare near real before the war. Let me take you a quick fast forward to Chief of Defense Staff of India. Mr. Anil said, you heard it about 4 days back, when he said that do not ask whether how much loss did we suffer. Please ask that what we learned out of it, and what's the strategy, and when we came back, we improved the tactics. That's very strange. As a military student, I was surprised to see such a high-ranking officer talking this, that do you ever buy combat aircraft to be grounded during the war? Do you ever go into war to learn the tactics? Do you ever stop the war in the middle of the war to say that, okay, hold on, we have a new idea coming up, let us practice that? I mean, look at, let me talk, your viewers must be as young as you. Ronaldo is one of the favorite player. Obviously, everybody loves him. In a 90 minutes of football match, when he plays, the ball comes to him for about 1.5 to 2 minutes if you total accumulate the total. The Ronaldo is not known for 88 minutes of game. Ronaldo is known for 1.5 to 2 minutes when he converts that ball into value for his team. This is what the Air Forces are supposed to do. You can't say, look at my performance in 88 minutes. Even if I didn't do well in 1.5 minutes, so what? That's not war. It's not done in the games also these days. And you're talking about the wars. That was a surprise to me.
I was so surprised as well. And it's true. So the Chief of Defense Staff, the Indian, he admitted that the entire Indian Air Force, in a 4-day war, for 2 days, the whole Air Force was grounded, was trying to figure out what went wrong.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I said. Do you buy these aircraft to be grounded? And when you already have the serviceability of 50 to 60%, I'm not saying, Mr. Praveen, ask Mr. Praveen. He will tell you the Air Force is running on 50 to 60% serviceability. For the viewers who do not understand this term, that means if you have 1,000 aircraft in the Air Force, 500 to 600 aircraft are ready at any given time to take part in the combat. And another thing, let me also add another surprise, which was not a surprise for Indians. 1985, Indians think that they need to make their own aeroplane. And they went on to conceive Tejas. 1985, it's exactly 40 years back. And then comes in late 80s, Pakistan Air Force had the weapons and the spare parts stoppage from the United States of the F-16 aircraft, late 80s. And 1995, 10 years after India, we start to conceive that we need to have our own aeroplane. And we are 10 years behind India. Indians Tejas are today only deployed in 2 squadrons, which are deployed close to south of India, close to Sri Lankan border, and they never took part, 40 of the aircraft, they never took part in the combat. Pakistan Air Force, which had conceived the aeroplane in 1995, 10 years behind India, there were about 200 aircraft participating on the front line, obviously, during this combat. So there was another surprise. And look at the unhappiness and the disappointment of A.P. Singh, Air Chief Marshal, Indian Air Force Chief. First, he went on in February 2025, this year, just about 3 months back, in a public seminar. He said that I need more platforms, which means aircraft, to stay relevant and to deter the enemy for 2 things. And he shared his disappointment. He said we had ordered 40 Tejas in 2016, 9 years back. And he said, we haven't received a single aircraft till now. That was February. And now let's fast forward to 30th May. This just not even a week back, when he shared as another disappointment. He said that we have to be new ready to be future ready. I'm sorry. We have to be now ready to be future ready. Now, when do you call now? On 30th May? Sorry, should have been earlier. I don't see this side of the border that they call it, we have to be now ready to be future ready. They got to be ready. They had to be ready in the past rather. And then he went on to say that whenever I sign a contract about the aircraft, the weapons, about the missiles, while signing my contract, I know this timeline is not going to be not going to be met, but we somehow still sign the contract. I don't see this side of the border. We have inducted, Pakistan Air Force has inducted 19 new inductions in last about 4 years. 19, including J10C, JF-17 Thunder, HQ-9B surface-to-air missile, and many more. I have gone through the data and the induction. Most of the inductions have taken place before the actual timeline was given to the team. So that's the difference between it. What I'm trying to say, there are numerous examples that I can go on and on to share with you the environment that the Pakistan Air Force has and the kind of environment the Indian Air Force faces.
Right. And looking at the events that took place, so you mentioned how it was at the point when the Indian army attacked Pakistan air bases that Pakistan went out kind of on a proper aggressive kind of response. But if we roll that back a little bit and to see why did India do that? Did India do that because first of all they miscalculated to begin with the air combat that they went into with Pakistan and they lost 6 planes? Was it that embarrassment that they were trying to cover? So then they attacked Pakistan air bases and then they got a bigger response as a result. So is that kind of it? Was it one miscalculation after another?
No, Tafeev, I thought they were playing on two fronts. As a student of strategy, I can say that. One was the kind of the suffering that they had in the hands of Pakistan Air Force was 7th morning, that you already said it absolutely right. And then what the Chief of Defense Staff said, correlate with that. He said we went on to see where did we go wrong. We wanted to reevaluate our tactics and everything. And 2 days we did that and looked what a performance our third day was. Third day performance was brilliant. You see, this is, you are sitting in UK, probably you will understand cricket better. It's like an Indian team sends its cricket team to World Cup final and the team reaches final and it loses the match. And the Indian people ask the cricket captain, Indian captain, did you how many wickets did you lose and what score did you do? He said, don't ask us wickets, don't ask us the score, ask us the level of preparation that we've done for the next World Cup after 4 years. That's how, I mean, they were trying to evaluate for future thing. Don't do that, please. I think on the serious note, I think they were trying to cover the Air Force drawback through surface to surface weaponry, the drone that they were firing. And obviously I was in touch with the Air Force and I got to know the Indian Air Force was not flying on 7th and 8th and 9th. They never got airborne close to our border. They were flying close to Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. So this is the mindset. Obviously, they never wanted to disclose their weakness. So they started off with surface to surface weapons. So they thought probably the Pakistan would now take it a new normal. And another advantage that they want to take out of this is that drones are very less expensive. Number one, they do not leave any wreckage. Obviously, much wreckage to be photographed or filmed through satellite. Number three was they wanted to create the harassment amongst the people of Pakistan because they were shelling major cities also, including Lahore, where I'm sitting. One of the drone fell just about 2-3 kilometers from here. So they wanted to scare the people and wanted them to lose the confidence in the armed forces. But nothing worked. People were having the photographs and making TikTok with those weapons, probably trying to upload it.
Yeah, people were already selling the parts on day 2 or something.
Yeah, so it was a many-pronged strategy, which probably I never taught or I never learned from my instructors. That, okay, you got to go pause into the war, learn the strategy again, start surface to surface, reevaluate your mistakes, and then come back and obviously keep that. So I think they were never sure what's the net game. We have in the Pakistan Air Force, last sentence on this question is that Pakistan Air Force has a kill picture. That means the employment of assets, maybe surface-to-air missiles, a fighter aircraft, airborne early warning, the jammers, the satellites, the cyber command force, and aerospace technology, all have a kill picture. It's like again a football. At the end, one person will make the shoot into the pole, but there is a huge homework which goes on to prepare and make the ball reach there. This is a kind of kill picture the Pakistan Air Force has. They have the end picture, and obviously we have the defensive. Please remember that the Indians are offensive. Who wanted to give a pause? The country, the Air Force, which is offensive, should have done homework like anything, and they want to have a pause. How defensive people can have a justification? We were not prepared. We were not expecting. We didn't know the intensity. We didn't know the location. So we need to stabilize ourselves and get back to you. Here it is an offensive side, which is saying that, okay, we were offensive, but give us some time to breathe and give us time to rethink of strategy.
So Commodore Khalid also, did both sides use surface-to-surface missiles? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, Pakistan Air Force and Pakistan Armed Forces, the land forces also used Al-Fateh 2, which is a short-range missile. It's not a very long range. It's not a strategic weapon, but they used it very, very powerfully. It has almost an error of few feet. Pakistan Air Force also used, we targeted about 16 air bases. And the most difficult part was targeting the S-400 surface-to-air missiles. They never been hit by any force in the world. They were targeted for the first time. They have total of 5 batteries, almost 32 missiles each. 2 were deployed close toward the China border, and 3 were deployed against Pakistan. 1 was close to Bhuj, which is almost toward the seaward. We targeted that once, and the one which is in the middle of Punjab, opposite to Pakistan, which we targeted twice. And we targeted the cheese board, which is a kind of radar that you talk about, which acquires the target at 600 kilometers approximately and shoots it at 400 kilometers. If you connect with that, what its name says, S-400 means the 400 is the kilometer that obviously that can fire on.
So how was it? What was the strategy? Has Pakistan Army Air Force actually disclosed the strategy that they used against the S-400?
Not yet, because not only in London by my friends across the border, but not only you and me could be keen, they're desperate to know how did we kill that. And probably with the passage of time, we will probably possibly share. And at the moment, due to the sensitivity, I may not be able to share more.
Sure. Also, when you have 2 nuclear armed nations bordering each other in a conflict like this, and when surface-to-surface missiles are being used, or even air-to-surface missile, how can both sides be sure what the other one's using? How can you be sure that they are not attacking us with nuclear weapons, for example?
I think that's
about to attack us.
That's a very good question under the circumstances, especially keeping in mind India-Pakistan environment. Any missile could be taken, a nuclear tipped missiles. Let me also tell you another interesting aspect. Deputy Chief of Air Staff Operation, Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb said in his press conference, he said, apart from the fighter aircraft, there were about 125 in the airspace of India and Pakistan to 12:10 a.m. Please remember, it was past midnight. It's not daytime. And he also said there were 57 civilian airlines operating in Pakistan airspace. I did my research to find out what was the traffic on Indian side. There were approximate 400 aircraft, civil airliners flying in Indian airspace at that time. Because at an average of 7,000 to 8,000 flights operate in and out of India. So at that particular time, there were about 400 civilian airliners in the area. India never wanted to divert them or stop them, because Pakistan Air Force will get the early warning that why are they diverting the civilian airlines. So they continued to let them fly in the airspace. Now there are 457 civilian airliners flying in Pakistan and India at that particular time. And please remember, if you take average 300 passengers, there were about 12,000 passengers in the air, innocent passengers. Look at the element of irresponsibility. There were 125 aircraft, both sides of the border, average of 4 to 6 air-to-air weapons missile installed on them. And if you multiply, there were about 600 beyond visual range missiles being operated in the aerospace, where there are 450 innocent civilians also flying in different airlines. They look at the element of irresponsibility on the Indian side. That's number one. Could have been very, very dangerous. I'll come to the nuclear. Now, coming back to the nuclear. BrahMos that they fire, And by the way, on the lighter note, Brahmos is made of two words. Brahmaputra is a river in India, and Mosokova is a river in Moscow. So they became up with the name of Brahmos. So when they made this, obviously launched this missile, and Pakistan Air Force said in the press conference that we managed to diffuse, disconnect, divert, or mislead the Brahmos. And now where do they mislead and where do they go? What if the Brahmos would have flown in and flown over Pakistan and fallen into Iran or Afghanistan? Would Iran or Afghanistan ever think that these were fired by India? They would always think that Pakistan has fired them. Look at the regional instability that we need to talk about it and make people aware of. That irresponsibility that I'm talking about. Till now, they're all conventional, by the way. It's not nuclear. What if the nuclear tipped and Pakistan deflects those missiles, obviously, which it has a legal right to, and it falls into Iran? What will be the level of security and the stability in the region? Obviously, there will be a try or I don't know how many multi-country or multinational fight going on here. So it's an element of huge irresponsibility in Indian part. And I totally agree with you. In nuclear tipped environment, one cannot ever be sure that when is obviously. But one thing is positive. We have fought back conventionally. And Pakistan has conveyed to India probably that what you're talking about, and India had been saying that Pakistan is not a responsible country. They always have a thumb on the button of the nuclear. We have told India, no, the button is too far away. We can still fight you in the conventional war also.
That's amazing. Also, there's been a lot of talk between the aircraft that was used on both sides, especially the J10 by Pakistan and the Rafale by India. I'd like to get your opinion on both of those, but I'd also like to get your opinion on, as you touched upon before, it wasn't just the aircraft that launched the final missiles that were, but it was a whole network sitting behind them. So was it the fact that it was Rafale that let India down, or was it India that let Rafale down? Because I'm thinking, in an imaginary scenario, if we switch the roles and if we give the J10s to India and Pakistan had the Rafales, would the result have been any different, given the whole network and the way everything was set up?
Taking on your last sentence first, yes, the result would have been different because it is not the weapon system, it's the employment. Rafale is a wonderful aircraft. As an Air Force pilot, I would have a huge respect for the aircraft. There's no deny of the fact. It's a wonderful aircraft. It's electronic suite. It's jammer, everything, and missile meteor that it carries is very effective. No doubt about it. Now I'll come to the J10C. I had met these pilots related to my documentary. I interviewed them a couple of weeks back, and obviously the kind of result that they were showing. And I was not matching with them, obviously emotionally connected from that angle. As a fighter pilot, yes, but the claim that they were making, I thought I'm an old man. Obviously, they're young blood, and they're obviously claiming very high. But now I realized they were not. They were very humble. They were very docile, what they actually did. Now, let me talk about Rafale. Rafale is, as I said, it's a wonderful machine. For your viewers, let me quickly cover the history of Rafale. It was first inducted into French Navy 2001, 24 years back. And since then, let me tell you, it is the first time ever that it has been shot down in any combat. It has taken part in Syria, Libya, other world conflicts, never been shot down. Till today, even during the peacetime, in the last 24 hours, out of the 290 aircraft that Rafale are in the world, 220 are being operated by the French themselves. And never ever combat loss, total of 9 losses in 24 years. Out of that, 2 aircraft were lost during the combat aero maneuvering, not in the combat, aerobatics. And obviously, both pilots ejected safely, and we've lost 6 pilots till now in the Rafale. So if you take out the average, let's take the average comes out to be about 1 aircraft in every 3 years is lost. That means, I repeat, 1 aircraft every 3 years. What Indians did to Rafale was 3 aircraft lost in 1 hour. So that tells you the story. It's not the aircraft, it's the employment. They did not have the kill picture. They did not have the integration. The multi-domain operation is the one that PF has been working on since many years. We do fight with a multi-domain scenario. That means it's not one fighter airplane. There's the support element, the jammers, the airborne early warning, surface-to-air missiles, aerospace technology. We fight them in an integrated team. Gone are the days that World War II or 1965 or 71 that there was a dogfight taking place. The dogfights do not take place now. You saw that in this conflict.
Yeah.
So it has to be a kill picture in the mind of all stakeholders, number one. And all stakeholders have to have the orientation, how to connect with each other. And the best they were doing is through networking, obviously. Every aircraft that was airborne, if that particular pilot wants his picture to be seen by another aircraft, another platform, obviously he had, and vice versa was also true. I believe, I do not have the data, but I believe looking at their combat employment, they were in the air almost 85 aircraft, but they did not have the kill picture. They did not have that kind of integration. They were just the numbers in the air. It was World War, and later on, probably Soviet Union's philosophy of using the aircraft as an airborne artillery. It's no more an airborne artillery. It's an airborne artillery backed by 20 sophisticated elements that you need to keep in mind to obviously make a kill happen. Like I gave the example of the football goal.
I understand it, as you've alluded to. We have something called the multi-domain warfare that's been adapted by Pakistan Air Force, which has given the Air Force a huge advantage over India. And it seems like a brilliant, a futuristic kind of a setup. But with it seems to bring complexity. And with any complex kind of a system, there's more chances of things kind of breaking down or malfunctioning. With the best databases, the best networks in the world, a slight glitch can kind of just break the whole system down. So in that scenario, when you're in the middle of a combat zone and you're engaging with the enemy, what would happen if the system kind of just let you down? How would the pilots respond to that situation?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question, I think, and very well needed to be clarified to the viewers. When I finished the visit and I asked the senior officer who was commanding the area, I asked him, what if the things are blocked, you are logged out, because the passwords are changed, even the software is upgraded. So how would you run these technologies? So he said, sir, whatever you've seen under this roof is 100% made in Pakistan and by Pakistani young boys and girls. Obviously.
Wow.
So we are not absolutely dependent for networking outside. That's number one. And having said that, I'm not at all saying that the technology cannot give away, but the pilots always given the practice of minus this integration also. This is the primary mode, secondary mode, and tertiary mode are always there. They do not just say that because the technology didn't work, we didn't behave that well or didn't perform that well. Like the Indian Chief of Defense Saab was saying that our tactics are faulty. The tactics ought to be rehearsed near real war scenario during the peacetime. And Pakistan Air Force does a lot of practice minus these integration also through other alternate methods, obviously, which are already developed, by the way. So we don't have to worry from that angle what you have. But your observation is very valid that the technology has to be obviously
That's
taken.
very interesting. Thank you. I have another question. I was wondering, as you were talking, because I know there was the clash we had with India in 2019. And as I understand it, that was very significant in terms of going forward, the policy, the strategy that the Air Force had. And that's something that you've touched upon as well. Can you please tell us a little bit about that? Like, how did that change Pakistan Air Force thinking going forward?
You see, Mr. Tafeen, the air power by nature is a very offensive force. Let's be very clear. When we use it defensively, I believe that you're using it as the very nature of the air power. As I told you, 5 elements, the surprise, the shock, the environment that it creates, it has an element of concentration, it has the initiative. These are the traits of the air power. And obviously, most of it can be best capitalized when you go offensive. In 2019, we were conscious that obviously it was LOC, it was not international border, the line of control. So Pakistan Air Force was very conscious not to shoot on an aircraft which the debris falls inside India, obviously. That was a kind of prerequisite and undeclared instruction to the pilots that they should better shoot it down when the wreckage falls into Pakistan. Now the scenarios have changed. It's a beyond visual range missile. You lock up these fighter jets 200 kilometer plus, especially through J10C at JF-17 Thunder Block 3, which has been upgraded with the same radar and PR-15 missiles. So you cannot make sure that when you lock an aircraft 200 kilometer far away, the debris should fall into Pakistan. It's almost known that the debris would fall into India. So these pilots that I have had post-conflict understanding and discussion in the Air Force at high level, I've been told that the pilots were told not to take care of this debris falling into Pakistan. They got to shoot. They got to take a kill. They got to obviously score the point. So which is that they did obviously effectively, because this there was no sanction of these kind of, and obviously pilots were also exempted from taking permission to shoot. Earlier we were conscious generally that we didn't want to escalate the war. We didn't want to go up ladder obviously on the war. So this time the pilots had been given a free hand that if they were getting the parameters met, they got to take on, and they took it. Obviously that was the difference from 2019 to 2025.
And also, is it the case that even in this conflict, where Pakistan downed 6 Indian aircraft, um, potentially they could have taken a lot more on. I've heard that they were only going after those aircraft that actually discharged the load onto Pakistan. Is that right?
They could have gone for more because if you recall the first initial part of my talk, I said the Pakistan Air Force particularly was in the war deterrence mode. When you're in the war deterrence mode, you do not go for high numbers because you want to send a message. And that message was very clearly sent out by, say, obviously shooting down 6 aircraft. 6-0 is a huge score with an Air Force which has such huge budget, obviously. So had we done more damage, obviously, we would have invited war, which we didn't want to invite, obviously as a first choice. But compelled to go for war, obviously you saw that on 10th morning. So that was by design. This is what I was saying, that the kill picture should be there, our doctrine should be there. You need to hypothesize the enemy, and obviously, and again, you have to take into account what do you want to do when you destroy 10, 20, 30, even if you could, hypothetically, what do you want to take out of it? We didn't want to take anything out of it. We didn't want to go for war as a first preference. We wanted them to know the price is going to be very high.
Very true.
And obviously, which was paid by them on 10th morning.
Can you tell me a little bit about Pakistan Air Force from a historic point of view? As I understand it, somehow we've always managed to maintain dominance or technological superiority over Indian Air Force. How is that possible, given that really we have like a fraction of the budget that Indian defense has allocated to the Air Force and Army on the other side of the border? But on top of that, as you mentioned before, we've been under sanctions for like decades. So in that period, how were we able to maintain that dominance? And why has India allowed that kind of situation where they had more budget, they had more resources, but they kind of failed to take advantage of that?
So quick 3 questions. You're talking about the history. It was just after 12 years when Pakistan came into being. It was 11th April, I think, 1959. That was an Eid day in Pakistan when a Canberra aircraft, Indian Air Force Canberra aircraft, penetrated into Pakistan Air Force, the airspace, and flew till almost Rawalpindi. 2 aircraft were scrambled from Sargodha, which belonged to 15 Squadron. And interestingly, let me tell you 2 connecting dots, that 15 Squadron was formed today, that is 5th of June. That's the birthday of the 15th Squadron. And very interestingly, that's my birthday too, which is today. So we all have.
Oh, amazing.
That's on the lighter note. I have to
Give us a sign on your birthday.
Thank you. I have to record another interview for the birthday of that 15th Squadron. And that 15th Squadron was my first squadron when I graduated from the Air Force Academy. And that was my first squadron when I joined it in Peshawar, which I was referring to. That's 15th Squadron. So what these pilots did was that their Canberra was flying about 55,000 feet. And on Eid day that I was doing, Air Force was highest alert even on Eid day, 12 years after Pakistan got independence. So they went up, but could not catch up because of the saber limitation of going beyond around 48, 50,000 feet. So when the Canberra descended close to Pindi, assuming that they cannot be, obviously, it cannot be intercepted, it came down, lost some height, and one of the pilot flight lieutenant Yunus opened the burst and obviously shot it down close to Rawalpindi. 2 pilots, the pilot and the navigator, were captured, made the prisoner, and obviously gracefully returned soon after. That's the readiness that we're talking about. And then Air Marshal Asghar Khan takes over the command of the Air Force, and then Noor Khan. They set a legacy in the Air Force, let me tell you. What today Pakistan Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmad Babar Sidhu is doing, upholding the legacy of last, 60 years. It was, we cannot match India by number. So what do? historically, we have never matched the Indian Air Force by number. What do we do? Number one is the faith that we have. That why are we fighting? The cause that I mentioned, justified cause. We fight for the survival. Number two was quality of training. That we obviously don't, if we do not have the quality of training, we'll be beaten out because the number other side is anyway high. Number three is the induction, timely induction of the technology that we do. We plug these, obviously, the numerical gap with three things: the faith, the quality of training, and the technological advantage that we take on. Now, your second question was, why not Indians? The Indian side, you can see the bureaucratic probably chain, the red tapeism, whatever. I respect the democracy that they claim, but on the other hand, they have a huge system in getting the funds released. Two press conferences that I've talked about it, of the Indian Air Chief AP Singh's, one of February, and the second one I've said 30th May, just 5 days back. He's talking about his helplessness. I have met Pakistan Air Force Chief. He never sounded helpless that he could not do this. He had inducted so many things. He'd earned so much of revenue by giving, obviously, for Pakistan government, by making something innovation, obviously exporting it to different countries. We have already sold JF-17 Thunder to almost 3 or 4 countries. And few should be more lined up after having seen the combat proven performance of JF-17 Thunder. So that's probably the difference that I can tell you. On the other side, bureaucratic, long drawn, timeline not met. Probably that aggressive mindset is not there to induct the thing. Probably on the Pakistan Air Force, I see that probably they believe the thing should have been inducted yesterday. That's the mindset that they have.
That's very interesting, because I'm here engaged in different businesses, startups, and things like that. And I quite often see that, like, where there's a startup that had lots of resources, they make so many poor decisions because they feel that they have the luxury of making those poor decisions. Whereas when you're tight on budget and every penny counts, basically you just simply don't have the luxury of making those mistakes.
Absolutely. I gave you the example of Ronaldo. He's known for only 1.5, 2 minutes. I said in the beginning. So it's the best that you have to use what you get. If you can best convert the value of what you have, probably your performance is correspondingly going to be that much praiseworthy. But it's not the 88 minutes of play that obviously Ronaldo is not keeping the ball with him. We're talking about 2 minutes only.
Commodore Chishti sir, can you also, in closing, maybe tell me a little bit about I know I've heard some of your talks where you mentioned your meetings with Abdul Qayyum Khan, the architect, the founding architect of Pakistan nuclear weapons. Obviously, nuclear weapons is not a desirable thing for anyone in the world. We would love to have a world where there are no nuclear weapons. But in the world that we exist, I think without those weapons that we have, I don't think there would have been a Pakistan standing today, because even with nuclear weapons, we have to constantly having to defend ourselves against the likes of India. So it's unimaginable to think how we would have existed without the likes of Abdul Qadir Khan. So can you tell me a little bit about maybe some of your meetings with him, the personality that he was?
First of all, I was very lucky. I was a faculty member at Air War College and Naval War College and National Defense University I mentioned earlier. And we used to receive him as a guest speaker when he had developed the bombs, and it was no more a secret. And being a faculty member, we also had the privilege that after the session, he would sit with the faculty members alone for a coffee or lunch or dinner or whatever was at the time. And we used to listen informal thing, which even he could not say during the formal talk with the participants of the course. He could not say. So the kind of person that is a brilliant man, obviously, but very, very down to earth person. And no protocol, no air, no collar up, nothing. He was so simple that could not believe that he is the person who left Netherlands to make this help Pakistan to become nuclear, and obviously got settled down here, contributed significantly. He used to narrate stories that 1976 I came and I met Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and asked him, what can I do? And then I went back and nothing much was done till the time obviously 78 came, and then he came back again and insisted. He was persuading Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto to start off the nuclear program, which he did later on, of course. And I used to hear a lot of strange things from very meager start that he did with no scientist. Obviously, he could not bring the team with him. In those days, there was hardly any computer that we could talk about it.
Yes.
There was no soft copy or data, obviously cloud sharing, and nothing was available in those days. He just flew, came back empty-handed, and started off from an office close at the Air Force base in Chaklala, which is Air Marshal Noor Khan base now, and just with a table and a chair, and he was asked to start making a bomb. He used to say that it started off so humble background that he started from, and the environment.
That was news for me as well. In my mind, I thought it was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, Prime Minister of Pakistan, that approached Abdul Qadir Khan and brought him over. But I think you were saying it was actually the other way around. So Abdul Qadir Khan was coming and trying to convince Zulfikar Ali Bhutto that this is something we need to do.
He told us once that I came and offered my services to him, that India had exploded in 1974 nuclear test, done that. And he said, I visited him and I met him that we need to do that. But before that, I heard that in 1972, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto had called some scientist in Multan and addressed them that we need to have a nuclear program. But maybe not nuclear bomb in those days, 1972, but he wanted to have nuclear program going. But nuclear, obviously, the weapon element came in when Dr. Qadir Khan permanently migrated from Netherlands to Pakistan and then started out with this.
That's amazing. Can you also, we at the start of this show, we talked about your work that you've been doing in terms of getting images, quotes, documentaries together of the founder of Pakistan, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Would you like to share maybe one or two stories about what inspires you about Muhammad Ali Jinnah, or a life story of his?
We basically, I've been working for last about 20 years on Jinnah. I got inspired when I was in Istanbul. When I saw that what respect the Turk people have for their leader Kemal Atatürk, I really got inspired and took on a challenge, gave a challenge to myself that I need to work on it. In the coming 7 years, I was still in the Air Force, started to collect his pictures, portraits, high resolution, high quality, and then started to collect the anecdotes. I started collecting the tributes of the world leaders about Jinnah. It's about 250 tributes that today I have. And then I started to, people encouraged me to make the presentation and talk about his leadership. And then I went around, I delivered talks all over Pakistan. In 2018, I went to UK, US, and Canada to deliver talks. And this February 2025, I visited Houston because 3 Pakistanis in Houston, Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, Mr. Dr. Asif Qadir, and Mr. Tahir Bhatti. These are the 3 gentlemen who were living there. They asked me to become the patron chief of Qaeda Foundation USA, set up a library there, and then I started, I went on to give a talk there. I came back and we opened a Jinnah library over there, which is now fully operational and running. And this coming 14th August, I'm scheduled to be going back to Houston to give a talk.
That is amazing. Personally, I'm not a person who likes hero worshipping and things like that, other than obviously the Prophet and companions of the Prophet. But when it comes to like contemporary people, um, I'm not really someone who's kind of tribalistic in my thought. I'd like to think. However, having said that, when I read the biography of Jinnah written by Akbar Ahmad, I was just so impressed and so inspired. And I just want every Pakistani, every person I can think of, I'm constantly recommending that book because I think um, if we knew more about Jinnah, I think we would be so much more proud and we would be better off for it, knowing where we're coming from. He was, before he came into politics, he was a very wealthy man. They say he had 100 tailor-made suits from Savile. Each one of those suits, even today, is thousands of pounds. Um, and he basically died penniless because he sacrificed everything for the country, for the nation. Wow. Amazing. Wow. Just if you would be so generous, do share either some clips from your archives or some images, and we can end the episode when we upload it. We can end it with either some pictures or a clip of Jinnah. I think that'd be lovely, and then we can obviously put notes in the show notes, links to your website, so people can go and explore more. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I loved our conversation. I'm sorry about the technical problems we had along the way, but thank you for your patience. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Jiseel, thank you so much. Hey there. I hope you're enjoying this episode. Let me just take a moment to introduce our sponsors for today. This episode is kindly being sponsored by the Worldwide Listings Company Limited, or WLC for short. WLC is a complete A to Z Amazon account management service. So if you're looking to start an e-commerce business, or you already have a business that you want to take to the next level, then get in touch and WLC will be able to help. Just for transparency purposes, let me also mention that WLC is a company that I personally created and am a director of. So when you get in touch with WLC, you will be speaking with directly myself or my team, and we very much look forward to speaking with you to see how we can serve your needs.